Hello and welcome back to the Villa Villa podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Manchester City versus Aston Villa this Sunday. Before we get into that, how are you doing?
Big one, mate. Yes. All good. All good. Um, yes. I'm not bad, mate. I'm not bad. I'm been a funny old week for our opponents, hasn't it?
It
And I think
has.
that's changed. I think that's sort of changed the way that I look at this game. There'll be a lot of eyes on this fixture for one reason or another. Obviously all of those what do you call them, allegations came out against Manchester City for fiddling their books and all sorts of financial misdemeanors, I think we should call it.
I think that's a good
Uh,
way of putting it. That is a great
it
way of
is
putting it.
financial misdemeanors. There you go. Basically, stretching back to their takeover in 2009. And despite listening to an entire TIFO podcast about the different breaks and what it all means and the different things that they did, I still don't understand it. It's very complicated. It's all sort of Rule 17C, paragraph D, line 4, like all that sort of stuff. And it goes straight over my head. But what it means is that there's a bit of a cloud hanging over the Etihad at the moment. And it would be interesting to see how that reflects on the pitch this Sunday.
It is, especially like City aren't really in a brilliant place at the moment anyway. It says a lot about them when we're saying they're sort of having not a bad season, but not a great season when they're sitting second in the league. Obviously, they have the chance to close the gap to 5 points, I believe, of Arsenal if they beat us. Arsenal have a game in hand. It's a double game week for them this week. They play on Wednesday after playing on Saturday, I believe it is. But yeah, you're right. There's a really weird feeling coming into this game, and after watching Spurs sort of dismantle is probably over the top, but Spurs did a job on City at home, and that kind of makes me feel way more confident coming into that straight off the bat, mate. Because this is the first time Erling Haaland, the Premier League's top goal scorer with 25 goals as it stands, astronomical achievement, by the way. This is the first time since 2020 where Erling Haaland hadn't registered a single shot on target in an entire game. That is crazy, and it's so
Wow.
telling. If you can stop Erling Haaland, you can stop Manchester City, and I think that's the only way Villa can go about this. We've seen how compact and how resolute Villa can be in these sort of bigger, broader, more tactical battles that we've seen away at Tottenham and against Manchester United, both home and away as well, and even Liverpool at home to a certain extent as well. Villa are going to have to be extremely well disciplined to stop Erling Haaland because he's certainly going to come back with vengeance this time round, mate.
Totally, totally. It's you're never sure whether to get too carried away with those kind of stats, are you, with Villa? Because as soon as a striker needs to break duck, as soon as their form is being called into question, as soon as they go a few games without a goal, perhaps, you know which opponents you need to face in order to right that wrong. And it is, of course, Aston Villa. We famously do this. And so, yeah, the FPL players amongst us, captaining Haaland for a double game week, in which one of the games is Aston Villa, can't be looked at as a bad thing because this is what we do. But no, it's interesting, mate. There's been a lot of dialogue recently about Man City. Now, I'm not just talking about the financial stuff. I'm talking about the on-pitch stuff as well, and how Pep Guardiola has tinkered quite a lot this season, and how there's been a lot of quite questionable decisions made. Obviously, João Cancelo left the club seemingly for good, although it's only an initial loan in January. Rico Lewis has stepped into that position, who's having a very good season, I think it's fair to say. But I do think in that game against Spurs, it perhaps showed up that, and this is no slight against Rico Lewis because, he's only, this is really his breakout season, that perhaps he wasn't quite at the level needed to compete in that kind of fixture. And, Rodri, normally Mr. Ever Present, Mr. Consistent for Manchester City, had a stinker in that game. And KDB was left on the bench. And that's really bizarre because for the whole season, we've talked about how cracked, how broken this KDB Erling Haaland relationship is, how it's created goals out of nothing, how KDB can pick up the ball 30, 40 yards out from goal and swing one of those trademark crosses that bends around the back four onto the boot when I'm rushing Haaland, who pokes it into the net. We've seen it time and time again, but KDB's left on the bench, and you sort of think, in a game like this, what is Pep doing? What's Pep thinking? And that's not the first time that people have alluded that perhaps Pep overthinks these big occasions. Normally, people sort of file that allegation against him in the Champions League. And that's another thing to consider in this game is that it comes back next week. Manchester City will be heading to Germany for a game against RB Leipzig, which goes down on Wednesday night, the usual 8 p.m. kickoff. So that's in the back of their mind as well. So it's a real funny time to play Manchester City. I'm trying not to get too excited about it because it's at these moments where you start to doubt Pep Guardiola and you start to write him off. And that's when City can go and put 6 goals past the team. And suddenly everything is back to normal. But things aren't quite right at the Etihad.
You're right, mate. You're right. And, Rico Lewis is a really interesting point. I think he's the youngest City player to ever score on their debut, scored in his Champions League debut. He's a premier talent. Questionable, as you say, to get rid of Cancelo and to sort of put that pressure, I guess, on Lewis to be the guy with the injuries and the sort of lack of defensive depth that Guardiola and City are sort of struggling at the moment. That's the position that I'm going to be sort of eagerly watching from the stands, mate, because I think after the Leicester game, it was pretty clear that was a game too early for Luka Dean. I think coming back from his injury, I didn't think it was particularly bad, but I think there was I mentioned it on the last podcast, mate. The levels when Alex Moreno came on, the first thing he does is run to the byline. That's what we want from our fullback, and that's what Moreno offers to this team. And I'm shocked right now as I pulled up SofaScore while you were just talking there, mate. They gave him a 5.9 Moreno against Leicester. Now, I know he was kind of a culprit in that Dennis Pratt goal, as we discussed the other day, mate, but I thought that's quite criminally low. Maybe it's quite telling on how bad Villa actually really were, to be honest. I perhaps thought he's one of our better players, but he attempted one dribble that was successful. 74% pass accuracy is okay, I guess, but managed 40 touches, 6 crosses, 1 long ball, had a shot on goal as well. I didn't necessarily think it was a bad game, and I think that's going to be the matchup where Villa have to target that left-hand side, because if you look at it's the left-hand side there, right? The forwards are interchanging a lot at the moment. One thing's for sure, we know Grealish will play in this game. He's ever since the World Cup, as much as it pains me to say, he's been excellent, and he's been one of the only sort of ever-present figures in a constantly sort of changing side. Whether it's Mahrez or Foden on the right, that will depend as well, because I think Foden may have sort of thrown his toys out of the pram a little bit with Pep Guardiola, and there's a lot of players in this team that has reportedly as well at the moment. So, but if it is Riyad Mahrez, we're going to be in for a field day down that left-hand side, mate. As long as you can sort of pick your moments and know when to attack and when to cause overloads with both Dean and we know that that's kind of Emi Buendia's side now. I assume he'll play. I think that's where Villa can get the most out of this game.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. I think you're right. And look, I feel like we've gone into this fixture dreading it for a little while, but the last 2 times really we've come up against Manchester City, we've done okay. Obviously, we drew with them at Villa Park this season. Leon Bailey scored a great goal, and we played well in that game. And we were dreading it because we were under a real bad run of form at the time, still under Steven Gerrard. And if you remember that game, like that draw felt like at the time, a catalyst for change. It felt like we'd finally got that result. Villa had really performed well in that game, and we were like, oh, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe this is a turning point for Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa. Obviously, it wasn't to be, but we haven't typically performed very well against Manchester City in the Premier League era. You'd need to go all the way back to 2000, 2001 for the last time we went through a Premier League season unbeaten against Manchester City. So that's pretty crazy. That's, that's what, 23 years or so.
Bro, we were three.
Yeah, crazy. That's what I mean, mate. It's crazy, isn't it? And it seems that we've become a really good side away from home. And I feel like that bodes quite well with everything going on. And we've currently won our last 3 away games on a Sunday, for the first time since 2008. a run of seven away. We put 7 away wins in a row together under Martin O'Neill. I didn't know this. I only found this when I was researching the pod. It was like 7 away wins in a row. That must have been dreamland for anybody on the road with Villa at that time. And we're looking, we're keeping pace with that sort of thing, and it's good. And yeah, it's really weird because normally you look at this fixture against Manchester City and write it off in your head almost. But the more that you look into it, the more that you dig into it, the more that you can slowly build up a sense of confidence. And you're right. I think Jack will play. I think he's been really good. I think he's been their best player, certainly against Spurs. I thought he was
Yeah,
excellent, and he's still not getting those goals and assists that perhaps he'd like. But he obviously got that big one in the Manchester derby, and moments like that are becoming more common. And if I'm not mistaken, he didn't play. He didn't play in the last game of last season, and he didn't play in the Villa Park game this season, did he? So I think we've only seen him come out against us the first time we faced them, which was at Villa Park, and obviously the atmosphere on that day was incredible. But I think, is this the first time we'll have faced him since then?
I think you're right, mate. I think he may have perhaps came on for like
Yeah,
5 minutes near the end just to run the clock down. But I think if we're talking about like genuine minutes where it looks like he's going to play, I think this is the first time.
yeah, interesting. But yeah,
We're not mad
it's
about it.
it. No, no, not at all, not at all. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we still have to overcome the odds. Man City have won their last 12 Premier League home games against us. Obviously, the most recent one on the end of last season, which won them the Premier League title. We have won just one of our last 29 away league games against the reigning champions of the top flight. You'd have to go all the way back to 2009 and that 1-0 win at Old Trafford under Martin O'Neill again for the last time that we went and beat the reigning champions on the road. But Man City have lost more games this season already than they did in the whole of last season. They've lost 4 compared to last season's 3, but they haven't lost consecutive league games since 2018. And that's what I mean about Pep Guardiola. And as soon as you feel the tide is turning against him, there's usually a performance straight off the back of it. And that's the only thing that worries me a little bit, mate.
Yeah, I was reading he's got the highest win percentage of any manager in the Premier League ever, which is crazy when we consider. I don't think it's a controversial opinion to think Sir Alex Ferguson is like the GOAT manager, but I mean maybe we're wrong and maybe it's Pep Guardiola.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like a 73.5% win rate for Guardiola in the Premier League, which is astonishing. But obviously, mate, we've since Unai Emery came in, Aston Villa have won all 3 of their away games in the Premier League. Now, he has the chance to equal John Gregory's record again if he manages 4. The longest streak that John Gregory had was 5. And that dated back to, when was that? 1998. So again, you were probably only just alive for that. I weren't even born, mate. It's frightening. I feel like all we do now is just date ourselves on these podcasts.
Yes.
But I mean, it's quite telling, mate, that this is a sort of a 24-year record that has stood, and that we've not managed to win 5 or 4 consecutive away games since then, or even 3. Because he tied
Yeah.
Gregory at 3, and that was only like 2 weeks ago. It's crazy, honestly. I can't get my head around it. That's sorry, the first set of games, not consecutive games. That's winning from when away games from when it was appointed, just to be clear. Because obviously we've won consecutive away games in that time. I know that. But yeah, this is one where I can't lie, mate. I am feeling really confident. I am feeling really confident about this. And I've just got this sneaky feeling. Unai Emery has never beaten Pep Guardiola. He's met him 12 times. He's drawn 4 and lost 8. And I just have a feeling this, we spoke about it off air, mate. He's broken the 3rd kick curse. We're going to be wearing that, so hopefully that's good omens as well. Hopefully he can get this other monkey off his back and get the bettering of Pep Guardiola. Another, we're seeing 2 elite Spanish managers go head to head here, and
Yep.
I think this is the kind of tactical battle that Guardiola will absolutely thrive in, because I think we're going to play a low block, but I think, there's going to be this sort of half press that we have to engage at times as well. It's not just going to be the typical performance that I think a lot of teams put in when they come to the Etihad, where they do play a low block and just try to shut up shop and escape with a win. I think we're going to be more aggressive in our approach. But I think, you know, that's not to say that we won't defend deep when we need to, and maybe double or even triple up on Haaland on corners and set pieces.
Yeah, no, mate, we will have to be very savvy about it. But obviously, we've won every away game we've played under Unai. We've been far better value at home away than we have been at home. It's really interesting to see that Tom Colomos, who's a very reliable journalist, said that in the summer Unai is expected to renew his interest in Nico Williams. He says he's determined to sign the kid out of Bilbao. And those kind of stories sort of reinforce that, like sort of what I was saying at the end of the last podcast, is that, you know, we can't get too high with the highs or too low with the lows. And we have got a tough stretch of games now in City and in Arsenal and then in Everton. And, you know, particularly that home game against Arsenal is going to be really tricky. And then, I mean, going out to Goodison in the, like, I say that in the form of the Everton run. I mean, that's crazy. They're only won one game, but it felt like the start.
The league.
It was, mate. It was.
Yeah.
And you feel like it's going to be the start of something. You really do. And Dyche has been a fantastic appointment. So that's just another really tough game. And perhaps in some crazy way, you look at this game at the Etihad as like, in that patch of 3 games, one of the better chance to get some points at the moment. It's pretty crazy, isn't it? But yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I think this season it's just about placing as high as we can. But, you know, if we can go and get results at places like the Etihad, that will keep the excitement. It will mean that the game against Arsenal is better, and it means that the atmosphere will be better and everything like that. And so there's still a lot riding on this one for sure, mate. But yeah, I am a little cautious, I must admit.
It's not very often, is it, mate, that you have these sort of run of games consecutively that have a really big impact on the title race. The fact that it's Arsenal, it's City than Arsenal, that's mad. So Arsenal are going to be watching us with, you know, a very, very keen eye, because if we manage to overturn City, then that is obviously beneficial to them. But then maybe they're going to have to be even more worried, because who knows, we could go and do the exact same thing against them at home. We take 6 points off these guys. Nobody's gained an advantage in the title race, and and we keep things interesting for another week. And then hopefully Sky won't label us as relegation threatened, as that seems to be the only thing they seem to do. It's always 9 points off the bottom 3 and not 5 points off the top 7. So you know, we can change that narrative with 2 dubs here. As for scores, you know, I was looking at in the past 5, aside from the draw, there has been a goal either way. You know, it's been decided by a goal, and I don't see Villa keeping a clean sheet, but I also don't see Villa scoring more than 2. So that's where it puts me in a difficult position, because Man City on average have scored 2.53 goals at home in the Premier League so far this season. So, you know, with my heart combined with that data, that tells me it'll be a 2-2 draw. But I've got a feeling that Villa can get something done here, mate. I'm gonna say 2-1.
Oh, do it! I was hoping you would.
I've got to do it. I got to do it.
Yeah, I find this really difficult. I sort of hark back to City's last home game in the league. They faced Wolves, who very much similar to us, so a resurging team that were punching below their weight under a new Spanish manager, and City went and dispatched them 3-0, and it was pretty comfortable. I think I do see us getting a goal. I really do. But I do think, unfortunately, we'll come out on the wrong side of this one. And given that I am usually absolutely rubbish when it comes to predictions, and more often than not, the literal opposite of what I say then happens, I'm going to go ahead and look at a 2-1 loss for the Villa, which hopefully means we pick up 3 points.
I'm loving the reverse psychology there, mate. Do you know what, though? While the predictions may not be right, the sort of the play-by-play as it happens in the game, we're generally pretty spot on with that. So I think we can take that in terms of insight and analysis. So we'll take the small L on the predictions, and the betting side, I guess, and just to know that our analysis and ball knowledge reigns supreme. Guys, let us know let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Again, I'm feeling really confident. I don't know why. I mean, I've told you why, but there's just something in me, and I don't know if it's just like, not that I treat this game like it's more than it ever is, because City always, like, as you say, mate, we have to go back to 2001 to the last time we done the double over them. It like wins against Man City come, like, they don't come very often. So I think I'm just hyped about this because, it feels like we're in a good place as a club right now. City are kind of heading in the opposite way, and I'm trying to be optimistic. You guys know me, I'm optimistic. Dan's optimistic. And I just love the Etihad as well. It's such a good away day.
Mate, I'm trying so hard to stick with my idea. I'm sticking with the defeat. But the more you're telling me, the more I'm like, oh, we could, we really could. But then I felt very confident going into Leicester. I
Yeah,
think
oh
I
yeah,
think
you and me
you went,
both.
yeah, I think you went 3-0 and I went 3-1. And look how that turned out. So yeah, I'll keep my mouth shut on this one.
On the morning of the Leicester game, went for a walk before I headed down with Charlotte, and we 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 ended up seeing like four cats, which Charlotte was very happy about because she likes cats. Um, and she was like, right, well, that's good luck then. We've seen four cats. There's going to be four goals. And I was like, yeah, okay. Hopefully that'll mean it's a 4-0 win for Villa. But no, obviously it was four goals that Leicester scored. So hopefully I see no cats.
Yeah, I was gonna say just
That's a
avoid
bad
them this
luck.
time.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, like, if I see one, I'm either bolting the other way or just like I'm closing my eyes, because we can't I can't be dealing with these superstitions.
Absolutely
Um,
not.
but no, guys, if you aren't aware, which you should be, we don't have ads at the moment, which sucks. I deleted the videos, Dan. You'll be delighted to know. I
Oh,
deleted them.
congratulations,
Well, I
mate.
didn't delete all of them. I deleted. There's like one left. I've kept the one up because I'm like, I think we can get away with that one. Um, but yeah, we've lost like millions of views. We lost monetization, um, which is shit. But we should get it back next week. All
We're in the
all things
trenches
going
right
well,
now.
we're in the trenches. So your support now means more than ever. So make sure, if you should know by now, we're on TikTok and Instagram. It's at Villa Villa Pod on TikTok. No, on Instagram, and at Heart of the Holte on TikTok. The links will be in the description. If you follow us there, it's just another place you can see us. Elon's doing God knows what with Twitter now, trying to limit you to 200 tweets a day. Not that we tweet a lot, but um, just need to make sure you're following us in as many places as possible, because like we could there was a day, wasn't there, a couple of months ago, where it was like Twitter's like dying. Like it was like Twitter was gonna go. We fully thought we was losing Twitter, and it's like, shit, we've lost like 35,000 followers nearly. So yeah, make sure you're following us on them socials. There'll be cut downs of these podcasts,
Yep.
and other things as things break. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, make sure you leave a review. Make sure you follow, subscribe, do all of that kind of stuff. It really helps. Um, Shout out to Max and Bertie. I forgot to do it on the last podcast, but yeah, shout out to them. Listen to the podcast, and yeah, subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. We're nearly at 14K, I think, mate.
We are, mate. 13.9.
I can't believe
13.9.
it. I can't believe it. So yeah, guys, again, your support, it now more than ever means more than anything. So Dan and I are really appreciative of that. Like, comment, subscribe, and up Villa.